5th grade. This video is for April 16th. Before we go on with grammar, I want to wish Shane and Chase a happy birthday. Hope you guys are enjoying your special day. Wish we could all be together at school to sing happy birthday to you, but I know that you're probably having a special time with your family to celebrate your day. All right, well, we're going to continue on with adjectives and adverbs today. Remember, adjectives describe nouns, adverbs describe verbs. And so before we get started in our lesson, I wanted to see if any of you might be extra good detectives and find some adjectives and adverbs in this poster I made. I hope none of you have ever lost a pet. It's really sad when that happens, isn't it? But let's imagine that you had lost a dog and you wanted to write an advertisement that could go in a newspaper or maybe make a poster to advertise that you lost your pet so it could hopefully be returned to you. So I've made a poster here to advertise my lost dog, and I wanted to use adjectives to describe the dog, so if someone found a dog they would know whether or not it was mine, and I wanted to use adverbs to tell what my dog is like and how my dog acts. So what I want to challenge you to do is to read the poster and see if you can find all of the adjectives and adverbs that I put in that poster. And then if you would like to write one of your own, that would be great too. And then challenge maybe someone in your family to see if they can identify the adjectives and adverbs in your poster. So thinking about a lost dog took me to a verse about being lost, but this is about sheep. Isaiah 53:6 says, "All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all." And so God is saying that when we have not accepted him, when we're living in our sin, we have turned away from him, and he calls us back and he wants us to be with him, to be part of his family. And Jesus bore the sin for all of us. He bore all of our iniquity and paid the price on the cross and died for our sins. And that is how we are invited to become part of God's family through our faith and trust in him. So he doesn't want us to be astray. He doesn't want us to be lost. He wants us to join him and to be part of his family. All right, so we're continuing on with adjectives and adverbs today. And I have some sentences up here on the board that I'd like us to look at. So take a look at this first sentence. It says, "The earthquake developed slowly under the ocean." Okay, what is the descriptive word in that sentence? Can you find it? Yeah, slowly, right? What is slowly describing? Yes, it's describing developed. It's an adverb, and it's telling us how the earthquake developed. It developed slowly. Look at the second sentence. The slow earthquake caused a tsunami. What's the describing word in that sentence? You're right, slow. And it is an adjective describing earthquake, because earthquake is a noun and the adjective slow tells us what kind of earthquake. It was a slow earthquake. In the first sentence, the adverb slowly tells us how it developed. It developed slowly. So remember the adjective questions, what kind, how many, and then the adverb questions, when, where, and how. Okay, so now we're going to take things a step further today, and we're going to talk about other words that adverbs can describe. I have adverbs describe verbs up here on the board, but adverbs also can describe adjectives and other adverbs. So adverbs are hardworking. They describe verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs, and we're going to see some examples of that. Take a look at this next sentence. The volcano under the ocean erupted very violently. Okay, let's find the subject first. Who or what is the sentence about? Yes, it's about volcano. So I'm going to label that S. What did the volcano do? Yeah, it erupted, right? So that's our verb. Do you see a prepositional phrase? Under the ocean. Okay. So we don't have to worry about those words anymore. So we have the volcano erupted very violently. Okay, so now let's look and see if there are any adverbs. How did the volcano erupt? It erupted violently. Yes. So we underline violently and draw an arrow back to erupted. Now we look to see if there are any other adverbs. And how violently did it erupt? Very violently. So very is an adverb, and it's describing the adverb violently. So it didn't just erupt violently, it erupted very violently. So we have an adverb describing the verb, and we have an adverb describing another adverb. So adverbs are hardworking. They can do a lot of different jobs. Okay, let's look at the next sentence. The eruption may not cause a very destructive tsunami. Okay, again, what's the subject? Okay, here the subject is eruption, right? And what is the verb? May cause. Okay, good. So do you see a negative adverb here? Right, we have the word not. Remember, not is not a verb, it's an adverb. Okay, so not describes may cause. And then we need to look and see if we have any words describing tsunami. What kind of tsunami is it? Right, it's a destructive tsunami. So that's an adjective. And then we have an adverb describing the adjective destructive. We have very. It's very destructive. Okay, so you can see that adverbs can describe verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. So we're going to go into more explanation of this in our workbook. So go ahead and take out your workbook and open it to page 237. All right, let's take a look at the top of page 237. Adverbs describe verbs and answer the questions how, when, or where. Okay, that's what we've been talking about. An adverb may come before or after the verb it describes. So in this sample sentence, we have tsunamis are usually caused by volcanoes, earthquakes, and landslides. So usually answers the question when, and it describes the verb are caused. So this one comes in the middle of the verb phrase. We have the main verb caused, and we have the helping verb are. Adverbs can also describe adjectives and other adverbs. An adverb that describes an adjective or adverb comes before the word it describes. So if it's an adverb describing an adjective or another adverb, it's going to come before that word. So in the example here, we have a tsunami is a very high wave. So the subject is tsunami, is the verb, tsunami is wave, so wave is the predicate noun, and then we have high describing wave and a describing wave, but then we have the adverb very describing high. High is an adjective that describes what kind of waves. Very is an adverb that describes how high the waves are. It was not just a high wave, but a very high wave. Look at the next example. The floodwaters swirled very quickly up the street. The adverb very describes the adverb quickly. It tells how quickly the flood waters moved. So the flood waters swirled. Flood waters is the subject, swirled is the verb. How did they swirl? They swirled quickly. How, and then very tells us how quickly, okay? So we're going to go through these step by step, but we're going to look at how to diagram a sentence with adverbs that describe adjectives or other adverbs first. In a diagram, adverbs and adjectives are written below the words they describe. Okay, that's what we've been talking about. We still do that. Look at the sample. Tsunamis happen most often in the Pacific Ocean. Okay, in the Pacific Ocean is a prepositional phrase. We don't have to worry about that. We put parentheses around it. We get it out of the way. We have the subject tsunamis, so that goes on the right. We have the verb happen, tsunamis goes on the left, it's the subject. Happen is the verb, it goes on the right. Then we see that we have the adverb often. And often tells us when. And so it's describing happen, and then most is describing often. And so it doesn't describe happen. We don't put it on a line under happen. We have to attach it to the adverb often that it describes. So tsunamis happen often. Often describes happen, and then most describes often. So we do that, kind of piggyback. Look at the next example. Extremely active earthquakes encircle the Pacific Ocean. Okay, so we find the subject, earthquakes, it goes on the left. We find the verb encircle, it goes on the right. And then it's an action verb, so we have to look for a direct object. And we see that earthquakes encircle Pacific Ocean, so that's the direct object. Then we look for any words describing earthquakes. They are active earthquakes. Okay, so active describes earthquakes. It's an adjective because it describes a noun. So it goes on a line below earthquakes. And then extremely tells us how active. They are extremely active. So that gets attached to active. They're not extremely earthquakes. It's not describing earthquakes. It's describing active. And then we have the adjective the describing Pacific Ocean. Okay, are you with me so far? All right, let's work on this together. Let's look at the first part. They want us to write ADJ for adjective or ADV for adverb above each underlined word, and then draw an arrow to the word that it describes. Okay, so number one, tsunamis mainly hit islands. Okay, so it might be helpful if you label the sentence. They don't ask us to, but I think it's always helpful to do that. So what's the subject? Yep, tsunamis. We put an S there. What do the tsunamis do? Okay, they hit. That's the verb. Tsunamis hit what? They hit islands. That would be the direct object. Okay, so mainly is describing what? Mainly describes hit. They mainly hit. And so hit is a verb, so that means mainly has to be, you're right, an adverb. And it ends with ly, which is a hint. Not always, but it's a hint that can help us sometimes. Okay, number two, these destructive waves usually happen along the shore. All right, so again, what's the subject? Waves, right? And what's the verb? Happen. Good. Okay, so what is describing waves? What kind or how many? Right, they're destructive waves. So we draw an arrow from destructive to waves. And since waves is a noun, We know that adjectives describe nouns. Okay, so destructive is an adjective. They're destructive waves. And then anything describing happen, yeah, usually. Okay, they've got that underlined for us. And so happen is a verb, so usually has to be an adverb, doesn't it? Because adverbs describe verbs. Okay, very good. All right. Number 3, they want us to label the sentence pattern and then diagram the sentence. Okay, forecasters quickly warned the coastal people. Okay, so who or what is the sentence about? Right, it's about forecasters. So that's the subject. What did the forecasters do? Right, they warned. So that's the verb. That's action. So now we need to look for a direct object. Forecasters warned whom? Forecasters warned people. Right. So we have subject, verb, direct object. Okay, before we start to diagram, let's see if we can label the rest of this so we know where the words are going to go. So quickly is describing what? Right, it's describing warned. They quickly warned. Warned is a verb, so that means quickly is an adverb because adverbs describe verbs. Anything describing people? Yep, the people, remember that's an article. And coastal people, good. These are both adjectives. Okay, now we're ready to diagram. Now we know where all the pieces go. So we draw a vertical line. The subject, forecasters, goes on the left. And remember, if it's capitalized in the sentence, you should capitalize it in your diagram. And then the verb warned goes on the right. Did I say forecasters goes on the left or the right? Sorry if I said the wrong word. Subject always goes on the left. Don't know why I keep making that mistake today. Okay, and then we have the direct object, people. Okay, and then we look for the words that are describing any of those words. So we have the adverb quickly describes warned. They quickly warned. And then the describes people, and coastal describes people. Okay. Forecasters quickly warned the coastal people. All right, very good. Okay, let's take a look at the directions on page 238. You're going to do more of the same. For the first part, they want you to write ADJ for adjective or ADV for adverb above each underlined word, and then draw an arrow to the word it describes. So if it helps you, you can write the adjective and the adverb questions on that page. So remember, the adverb questions are how, when, and where. And the adjective questions are what kind and how many. So look at the word that's underlined and see which of those questions it's answering, and that will help you know. And remember, adverbs describe verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs, and adjectives describe nouns. Okay, and then the next section, they want you to label the sentence patterns, SV for subject verb, SVDO for subject verb direct object, or SLVPA for subject linking verb predicate adjective, and then diagram the main words and all the adjectives and adverbs. If you find a prepositional phrase, just put parentheses around it. You don't have to worry about that. And then apply and write. Write a sentence about the ocean using one adjective and one adverb. All right, go ahead and finish up page 238. You do not have to do the worksheet. We'll do that tomorrow, and we'll also check page 238 tomorrow.